Hello and welcome to the Night Feed. I'm your host, Charlotte, here to bring you some comfort, camaraderie, and conversation and keep you company during, let's face it, one of the toughest parts of being a new parent, the Night Feed. Tonight's unpaid sponsor is Leaky Boobs. If you are in the first couple of weeks of breastfeeding, you will have come across this. If you are not and you are pregnant, I know I have some pregnant listeners, one to be wary of. So I was a few nights in, I was breastfeeding my baby, and I thought, wow, that is one big wee she's had to leak through her entire nappy, her romper suit, my pajama top, and the bed sheet. I was like, how much is she drinking? And I proceeded to change her. Bearing in mind this is like 3 a.m. when you are so tired, you don't want to turn hardly any lights on to wake her even more. So I'm changing her, and her nappy was dry. So then I was like, how tired am I? Anyway, I quickly realised that it wasn't baby wee. It was about a gallon of breast milk all down my top, all down my pyjama trousers, and on the bedding, and on her pyjamas. So one to be wary of, because the last thing you need in the middle of the night is your own boob wetting everybody. I think in the first few weeks, I started using something called, I think it's called a hacker pump, and it's basically not electric breast pump. It's like a little suction cup that goes on your other boob, and that collects the milk if you want to use it. I know other people use a pump on their other boob as they feed. For me, like I said, used that little suction pump. I didn't love it. I didn't get on very well with it. And I think it's because it was my first time breastfeeding, and the pain from breastfeeding in the first few weeks was so tough that I just started using breast pads instead. And I know it sounds wasteful, but I found that regulated the supply, and the letdown reduced on the other boob. So I'd always have a little breast pad in as I was feeding, and I noticed after a few weeks and months that the letdown was just a few drops then, because my boobs kind of understood that when baby's feeding on this side, we don't need a humongous letdown on the other side. And it's funny how it regulates. Like I said, in the first few weeks, it was like so much milk just oozing out, because your body's getting used to how you feed and where you feed and what the letdown is. And like I said, if you want to make sure you're collecting all that milk, then by all means get, the pump or a way of kind of capturing the milk. For me, like I said, after those initial weeks, I switched to breast pads, which just kind of held the little bit of milk that then started to come through. So yeah, that was a long-winded unpaid sponsor, but just a warning if you are pregnant, because that is something I didn't know about when I had the baby, that would happen with the other boob. It's just one of those things that other mums forget to warn you about or don't think of warning you about. But yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one to be on top of. This is just a reminder as well, separately, to all of you lovely listeners. I have recently set up a website for the podcast and it's www.thenightfeed.co.uk. And on there you can find all the podcasts. I'm also trying to upload all the episode notes, so like you can read through them like kind of like blog posts. So if I'm talking about something that you found interested, you can then refer back to the podcast episode in kind of blog form. And I'm also sending out a weekly newsletter. And this is just to basically remind you that the podcast has just dropped, and it has other helpful resources on there, some links to products that I'm enjoying, some a blog article, some resources I found online, basically just a whole mix of things that you as a brand new mom might find really useful. So yeah, if you just head over to my website, thenightfeed.co.uk, and I think it just says subscribe to the newsletter. You just hit that, and I'm not going to bombard you. It's literally one email a week. And yeah, that would be great if you want to sign up, if you fancy getting those notifications. Tonight, I thought I would talk a little bit about sleep hacks because sleep as a new mom, as a new parent, as I've spoke about in the past, is like the number one thing we all have to contend with, isn't it? It's like, it's the tough thing, I think, out of everything. And this is coming up today because we are in the process of considering turning my 2.5-year-old's cot into a bed. And it's a cot bed, so we just take the side off. And you may be wondering, gosh, why haven't you done that sooner? But my eldest was about 3.5 when we put her in a big bed. And it was just purely because she hadn't attempted to climb over the cot. There was no danger. She slept really well in the cot. We thought, why fix something that isn't broken? But as she got to 3.5, she was getting a bit like she wanted to climb over, and we didn't want it to be dangerous. So we thought, right, big girl now, we'll put you in the big girl bed. That did lead to her waking up a bit in the night, to be fair, and getting in with us, which we never really had with our eldest. She's always been, touch wood, a really good sleeper. Lately, she's just been getting in the mornings, which is completely fine. However, if you don't know, if you're new here, I am 26 weeks pregnant. So we have a baby boy coming along, which we are overjoyed about. We are just trying to work out the sleep situation because my 2.5-year-old still wakes in the night and gets in with us. And up till now, that hasn't been an issue. That's fine with me because I know when she gets in the bed with us, she goes back to sleep and sleeps till about 7 or 8 in the morning, which is just a dream. And I get the 8 hours that I need generally, with a bit of a wake up, with a bit of a shuffle. She is quite an active sleeper sometimes. But now we have a new baby coming along. We are concerned from a safety aspect about having a toddler and a newborn in the bed. So I've been doing my research, trying to find ways to help her sleep through the night in her cot. And one of the tips was transitioning her into a bed. Whether that will switch things up for her, whether that will make her think, oh yeah, I'm a big girl now, this is my bed. I imagine there'll be people listening to this shaking their heads vehemently like, no, she will just find it easier to get into your bed. And aside from turn our entire bedroom into a mattress, which yes, we have spoke about because of the amount of co-sleeping that goes on in this house, we want to get some kind of routine established. And my worst fear is that the baby will come along and we just have to make a snap decision to be like, no, you have to go in your own bed now. And I don't want her feeling pushed out at all. I want this to be an established routine where when baby comes along, she's already sleeping through in a bed and she's not feeling like he's kind of come in and pushed her out at all. That's not what I want. So today I've been kind of down a bit of a TikTok rabbit hole looking at different tips. Now, I am going to talk about some newborn or, some younger baby tips here as well. So I know most of my listeners are brand new parents, brand new mums. So there will be some newborn help here, but also it's one to save because the toddler night wake-ins and sleep tricks you'll need sooner than you can imagine. So one that I keep coming across on TikTok, and I don't know if you've seen this, is the egg in a sock. Yes, you heard me right. The egg in a sock. I got down this whole rabbit hole the other day, and because I clicked on one of the videos on TikTok, I'm being served with like hundreds of egg in a sock videos. And it's this sleep method that's gone viral where you basically take an egg uncooked and you put it in a sock and you place it near to where the baby sleeps. This can be a newborn baby to a toddler, apparently. Obviously, anything you're putting near the baby at night time has to be safe. So you have to have it away from them, but close enough that the effect works. So people have been like hanging it over the cot or putting it at, the side of the cot. And a few videos I've seen, the mums have come on and they're like, oh my God, it saved me. The egg in the sock. My baby slept through for the first time in 6 months. And I just have to tell you about it. I've seen a few of them, But then I've also seen others where they're like, it worked for one night, and I think it was a bit of a placebo for me. It's an egg in a sock. Let's be real. I don't believe there's some kind of weird homeopathic remedy going on here. Is it a fad? Probably. Have you tried it? Let me know, because it seems to be like a viral thing. One of the videos had 130,000 views and thousands of comments of people saying, this worked for me, this really worked. And I don't know if it's a wind up, to be honest. I haven't tried it, and I don't think I'm going to try it. I think mine are at 2 and 4, they're older, and I don't think that would affect their sleep as much as maybe a younger baby, if this does work. But yeah, there's a red herring for you. Egg in a sock. The next one is 100 walks. Now, this is for toddlers transitioning into bed. So basically what I was talking about a little bit earlier. And what it is you settle the baby or the toddler in their bed, and what tends to happen is the toddler will get out and walk to the door. It's age old. They now have this newfound freedom where they're not caged in a cot and they can hop out of bed and come and follow you. So what this person did was 100 walks, and it's basically where you tuck them in, you give them a kiss, you say goodnight, and you leave the room. And then within a few seconds to minutes, the toddler will walk to the door. And what this person did was very calmly held their hand and walked them back to bed and tucked them in. And the logic is that it can take up to 100 walks to get that toddler to kind of feel bored with it and be like, oh, right, mum's not going to let me go down here. We're going to have to keep doing this walk to the bed. This is going to get boring. And what this person on Reddit said was it took them 6 nights to do this 100 walks. The first night took 50 minutes of calmly walking the toddler back to bed, giving them a kiss, putting them back in bed, walking out. The next night took, I think it said 45 minutes. The following night took 50 minutes. Then the next night took 20. Then it went down to 6. Then it went down to 3. And then it went down to no more walks. So within a week, we're talking, the toddler then started sleeping through after the 100 walks, or they wouldn't get up, initially at bedtime. And a tip that this original poster had was that they listened to a podcast or an audiobook while doing it to remain calm, because otherwise you're up there for 50 minutes in that relentless cycle. And not only is it getting relentless for your toddler, it's getting relentless for you. So in order to keep calm and collected, it's great to have like one earbud in that they can't see, that you can enjoy that time a little bit more instead of having to have the repetitiveness. It, to me, yeah, if it works, it's worth a try for a week if you can commit to that. It's obviously quite a gentle one. You're not leaving them there to cry. I read one person who was just like, lock the door and leave them. And I was like, no, I just couldn't. I could not do that. I think the child needs to know that you're there. We're still dealing with very young children here. Like a 2.5-year-old is still a baby in my eyes. But I would not be able to lock the door on them. So I think any kind of sleep transition does need patience. And the more you know that as a parent and understand that as a parent and think, right, this bedtime could take me 90 minutes now. And I need to remain calm because it's not their fault. They're only 2.5. They just want to be with me. And they just want to hug. And they don't like the thought of being left in their bed. So the more patient we can be, the better. And we have to remember as well that, like I said, they're only babies. So they're not doing this to wind us up. There's no ulterior motive. They're not trying to stress us or trying to get a reaction. It's just bedtime can be really difficult for some. And there could be plenty of people listening to this now with babies that have sat through from 3 months and will not have this problem and do not have this problem. But there will be a lot of people, like the people I speak to, at mums and tots groups that all seem to have this similar issue around this age with either the transition from the cot to the bed or just kind of the 2-year-old separation anxiety. So yeah, the 100 walks is something to consider if you are going through that transition. The next tip is dropping naps to build up sleep pressure. Now, this is a interesting one. I am at the point of dropping the nap. When I drop the nap in the day, she will go down in about 10 minutes at about between 7.5 past. She will have enough sleep pressure from the day to fall asleep. And that's not me stopping her from having a nap. That is just her not showing any signs of wanting one in the day. However, if we go on a car journey at maybe 2, danger time, she will sleep. The car will make her nod off. And the same with the pram. If we go on a pram walk around that time, she will nod off. And if it's later than 3, bedtime generally takes till 9. That's just how it is at the moment. If it's about 11 or 12 that this nap happens, bedtime will take an hour, which is fine for me. And she sleeps for longer. And I know it sounds mad, but when she's had a nap in the day, say at like 12 till 1, and I put her down at 7:30, 8, she'll sleep till at least 1. But if she doesn't nap in the day, yes, she will go down within about 10-15 minutes at 7 or 8, at 7 or half past. But she'll wake after about an hour or 2 hours. And it's almost like she can't connect the sleep cycles because she's overtired. So I am in that treacherous overtired versus no nap kind of place at the moment. And I don't know necessarily if dropping a nap too early is good for them, because you have to remember their brains are still developing. They need their sleep still. So for me to say, right, when your baby gets to 2, no naps, I don't think that is necessarily the right advice. You might have a baby that doesn't need to nap and doesn't nap, and that's just them. But I think my youngest does still need that nap. And I just have to make sure it's before 2, essentially, so that she builds that sleep pressure up. But yeah, if your baby's a bit older, you've got an older toddler, and you're struggling with that bedtime, and you think they are ready to give up the nap, then definitely that's worth considering. Another tip I came across was meditations for babies and toddlers. Now, this one I found quite interesting because the person talking about this said how it saved them. There's quite a few people saying how this has saved them at bedtime. They were lying in the bed with the baby or the toddler for 90 minutes. And most of the time just in silence, or they tell them like a really kind of long withdrawn story to kind of make them fall asleep. But anyway, there's a lot of playlists on Spotify, and there are a lot of podcasts as well that do baby meditations. So I'll read out a couple of them that you can find. There's one called Happy Minds, which I believe is on Spotify. Baby meditation music. Coco Sleep, which I think is also a podcast. And a playlist called Sleep Meditation for Children. Now, they're the top 4 that I've found on, all these videos in TikTok that keep getting recommended. So I'm going to try that tonight, I think. I usually read them a couple of stories. At the moment, it's either Goldilocks, Red Riding Hood, or The 3 Little Pigs. And I read that with the lights off. And I read it in a very dulcet, slow tone to try and make them fall asleep. I'm like trying to tell the story as long and withdrawn and kind of almost dull as I can. And that is working with my 4-year-old because she doesn't nap anymore. So by 7:30, she's ready for bed. With my 2-year-old, it can take a little bit longer. But yeah, that's what's working for us at the moment. I just thought maybe I'll try some meditation music instead, or maybe a different voice might shake it up for them. Maybe a little bit of music might be a bit more of a switch off. So yeah, baby meditations, that's another one that's definitely worth trying. And then the last one is sensory activities pre-bed. Now, I'm not too sure about this one. Came across this video. I think she was kind of like a child psychiatrist, and she was showing a few activities you can do before bedtime to wind them down. And some of the things in this video, I'll tell you now. Firstly, was a pillow chop. So getting pillows and chopping them. Toddler toss, where you throw the baby on the bed, or the toddler on the bed, as in like, you have a little play, you wrestle. And the other one was teddy parachute, where you take a blanket, you put some of the teddies on top of the blanket, and you each hold the corners of said blanket, and you toss the teddies in the air. For me, I feel like those kind of activities would rev my girls up a little bit more than wind them down. I don't know what you think about this. I mean, she clearly was an educated professional in the field, so I wouldn't take it with a pinch of salt. Maybe these sensory activities are a good way to wind down the brain. I mean, anything without screen, I suppose, is a good wind down. But if I started throwing my youngest on the bed, particularly my youngest, she would absolutely love it. And that would become an again game. And it's funny because some bedtimes I send them up with Jason while I get the bottle, the drink bottles and whatever else I need. And I just hear them like having like a WWE wrestling match on the bed or whatever they're doing. And I'm like, babe, it's bedtime. We have to calm now. And the kids just love rough and tumble with their dad. And there's an empty bed there, ready to be jumped on. And I feel like if I started introducing pillow chops and toddler tosses and parachute blankets, it would just add to the mayhem. So I'm happy for Jason to have his little playtime pre-bed, because I do feel like it's like the last little burst of energy and then calm. But more activities to me just sounds like it would provide them with an excuse to run around even more and burn more energy. So yeah, I don't know. I'm taking that one with a pinch of salt, really. But if you have any sleep tips or hacks that have worked for you, whether you have a newborn, a 6-month-old, a 5-year-old, please write in, because I think the more we share on this, the better. It's something that all of us, I think, unless you are blessed with a baby that just sleeps, all of us, I think, will at some point have a trying time with, whether it's the 4-month sleep regression, whether it's the 2-year-old anxiety separation regression. There's always going to be some element of sleep which we find a bit difficult. So if you have any advice, please email me, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you a little bit of a trigger warning, okay? It's a very serious news story that I saw a couple of days ago, or a week ago or so. And it involves a baby tragically passing away. So that is the trigger warning. If you want to skip a few minutes ahead, please feel free. This is just kind of a reminder to follow your gut as a mum. Really, really follow your gut when your baby or child is ill. I think we all know deep down when something isn't right. So this story, I'll just briefly tell you because it is very sad. The parents noticed the baby had a bit of a tremor. I think he was only a couple of weeks old. So they went to the doctor with the baby, or the hospital, and they were told that they had first-time parent paranoia. Okay, and they were sent home, and then I think the parents started noticing it again and were just really concerned. Got to the hospital, and unfortunately the baby couldn't be saved. So it's really awful story. I think it turned out that the baby had, I want to get this right, it was either strep A or strep B sepsis was part of the illness that this baby had, along with something else, and they were told it was paranoia. Now, on that story I was reading, there was a comment from a mum who had been through something very similar, and this is the thing that I really wanted to flag to you as a new mum. both of these incidents took place in the UK. And this second incident was a mum who had, again, a very young baby. And she went to 4 different healthcare providers in 48 hours. And she knew, again, it was tremors, so very similar to the first baby. She knew something wasn't right. So she went to a doctor, then she went to 3 other healthcare professionals who all told her, again, it was paranoia and that she's a first-time mum. We've checked the baby over. They're okay. It's you just been a bit paranoid. And she got home on the second day and she went to her husband and she said, look, I want you to go in with me. I want you to come in with me to hospital and I want you to tell them that something is terribly wrong here. So they go into hospital with the husband, who really lays the law down, says, look, my baby is not well. Within minutes, the baby was on a ventilator because they had realised that their baby was severely ill. Now, luckily, that baby recovered and is fine now, thankfully. But I'd never come across this before. And what the comments under this were saying was there is a bit of a misogyny in the sense that if a mum goes in, it can be seen a bit like she's flapping. She's a bit flapping. She's a new mum. She's just a bit worried, as we all are. I know the first few nights you hardly sleep, do you? Because you're just so concerned about this new little baby you've got to look after. But apparently, some people are saying there's a bit of a misogyny where women are more likely to be seen as flapping a bit than when the father goes in and really lays the law down and says, look, the baby's not well. In this case, the dad was listened to and the baby was taken rapidly and given the medical care it needed at that point. So I just thought it's a really important one to raise with you in particular as brand new mums or second-time mums, third-time mums, however many children you have. Always follow your gut. And if you believe that is not right, something is not right with my baby, get the advice and the care that you need by any measure. Because I think, most times, I mean, for me, touch wood, my experience with healthcare for my 2 has been brilliant. And again, touch wood. We live minutes from a hospital and I hate having to go there because it means they're not well. But on the odd occasion we've been, they've been phenomenal. And the doctors have seen them same day if I've rang. So I think we all have very different experiences with the healthcare system, no matter what country you're in. There's always going to be stories where things have slipped the net. And unfortunately, these medical professionals are only human as well. And things do slip. But when you come across a story like this, where the mum is treated like she's flapping and the dad is listened to, it makes you really question things a bit, doesn't it? And I just thought, like I said, I'd share this with you all. I'm sorry it's such a sad story, because it is very, very sad. And I can only imagine what them poor parents are going through, especially after knowing in their gut something wasn't right. Just a reminder to, when you're in that situation and you know that something's wrong, to really, really push for the care that your baby needs. Next tonight is the emails from you guys. This first one is called Made to Feel Bad for Having One Child. And it says, hello, I need to hear your thoughts on our situation. Growing up, I always wanted at least 2 kids. However, my husband was always set on no kids. After 10 years together, we've had a baby. My husband did decide that he would like to be a father about 7 years into our relationship. Now we've experienced how difficult the last year has been. We're happy to have one. It's a mutual decision that we're both agreed on. However, pretty much everyone we speak to has a negative opinion on this. They say things like, oh, but she needs a sibling. She'll be an only child. What if she's a brat? Won't she want company? They really shame us and make us feel horrible for making this decision, even though it's what we want. help. Isn't it annoying how it's always other people that wade in? It's always other people. You and your partner are both happy with your decision. You want one child, you're happy with your one child. And it's everyone else's opinion, isn't it, that causes the upset? Slight segue, but I can kind of empathize on a kind of similar level here, right? Basically, Jason and I aren't married, and I've spoke about this before on the podcast, but we haven't got married yet. We both want to get married. We got engaged 3 months, no, not 3 months, 3 weeks before the COVID pandemic hit. So I didn't even have time to think about planning a wedding. And I wasn't going to plan a wedding during the pandemic because everything was so up in the air. And it was at a point where we were also wanting children. And we were at that point where we were like, if it happens, great. And it did. And we were blessed to fall pregnant in the April of 2020. And then we've had our second baby, and now we're pregnant with our third. And I get the odd comment now and then, like, oh, you're not married, and do you not want to get married? And, oh, are you not thinking about planning the wedding yet? And I know those questions aren't necessarily loaded because it's a different time now, especially in the UK, where it's fine if you're not married. It's a lot of people are getting married after having kids, or they're not getting married at all. So I don't feel like they're loaded questions, but you get so many opinions, like, oh, but you wanted a big white wedding, and are you not going to have the white wedding now? You got kids, and oh, you're 35 now, and I'm like, I want a wedding, and Jason still wants a wedding. I just don't want to be breastfeeding in my wedding dress. I've had 3 kids. I'm about to have my third kid. I'll have 3 under 5, and planning a wedding hasn't been my number one priority just at the moment. But we still want a wedding, and we still will get married, and we're looking forward to it when it happens. But coming back to you from my little segue there, what I want to say is other opinions will drive you mad. And you have made the decision that you want one baby. And you are happy with that decision. You and your partner have mutually agreed. It's not like your partner only wants one and you want 3. Then we'd be in a different boat, because it's like, oh gosh, there's tension within the marriage, and you want different things when it comes to kids. You both agree. So don't let this outside noise and all these opinions come in and cause unhappiness, because they will bring you a bit of doubt now and then. You'll think, oh, but maybe so-and-so's right. Maybe she does want a sibling. Maybe. If you've made your decision and you're happy with your decision, and that is what you want, then that is what's going to make you and your partner, and ultimately your child, happy. Happy parents, happy child. So, as I always say on this podcast, don't listen to the noise. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to have their say. I don't know if there's any listeners out there that have been in a similar situation with one child, that have a nice little shutdown they can give to people and they say this. Please do email in if you've been in the situation and you have come out the other side and, well, stopped people making comments, basically. Let me know, because it is a predicament and it is hard. And I feel like if you have 5 kids, people make comments. People just always make comments. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a jealousy thing. I don't know. But people always want to have their say. So the best piece of advice is focus on you and your husband and your baby. That's what matters. And your happiness is what matters. And if having one child is going to make you happy, then go with that and just block it out. Block it out as much as you can. Next email says, hello, I'm just 3 days in and need some advice. I've been listening to and loving your podcast during my 3rd trimester. Now baby is here, my husband and I are really, really struggling with staying awake at night. When I have my baby on my chest asleep, I'm scared to transfer it to the next to me, as I know she will wake. However, whilst holding her, my partner and I have both on occasion started to nod off. I've tried everything, even coffee in the night, to help pull through. but it's not working. Do you have any advice? Yeah. It is really, really difficult when you are hit with that initial wall of tiredness. There is nothing quite like it. My opinion in this case is safety first. And if you feel like you are falling asleep with your baby, put the baby in the cot or the crib or the next to me, whatever you have. It's always safer to put the baby down away from you. And yes, you will have to transfer them. And yes, it might wake them up. But you have to think safety first. And you are, by the sounds of it, because you say when you start to nod, you struggle to keep awake and you try and coffee and you try and all different things. I think the thing, like I said on last week's episode, that really helped me and Jason was the split nights. You know, if you're both really, really struggling with staying awake at night, you have to maybe look at saying, right, for the first 4 hours, your husband has the baby. For the next 4 hours, you have the baby, and just have that really defined time where you can at least get a couple of hours each. Because if you're both just kind of awake on and off in the night, sharing the duty completely between you both, you are going to get to that point of complete and utter delirium. So that is my advice. I remember when I was in the hospital, so you're really early in, aren't you? I was in hospital for the first almost week with my second, and one of the nights the midwife took her for about 3 hours, and I was able to get such great sleep. I think she gave her a bottle and just took her for me. And I just needed that so badly because I was in your situation where she wouldn't go in the cot. She just wanted to be on me. She wouldn't even go next to me. I think at one point I fell asleep with her next to me, co-sleeping in the hospital bed. And I felt comfortable with that because I'd done it with my first when she was a bit older. So like say 4 months plus, that's when I started co-sleeping a bit with my first. I didn't like doing it when they were newborn, and I still don't. I feel like they're really super small in my opinion. But anyway, I fell asleep with her safely. I had my arm around her. I wasn't on her. She was next to me in the bed, and the midwife didn't like that in the hospital. And I guess it's because if anything happens under their care, they're in a lot of trouble. So they don't encourage that for that reason, I think. So they woke me and they said, look, we're going to take the baby. We can see that you're desperate for sleep. We'll take the baby for a couple of hours, get your head down. And I woke up to my baby sleeping next to me in the cot. So the midwife had obviously fed her, put her down, and I felt like rejuvenated that morning. So I know you don't have a midwife to do that, but what I'm saying is try to alternate. And when one person has the baby, make sure the other person is fast asleep, get in that rest, so that when you do take over on your shift, you're not trying to like sellotape your eyes open to stay awake, because that is dangerous. Like you say, you don't want to fall asleep with the baby in your arms. And if it gets to that point, put the baby down, put the baby in the bassinet. You never know. They might stay asleep and you might get a few hours safely. It's always worth a try. But yeah, with this one, the main point is safety, isn't it? So my only solution, like I said, is just try the shifts. Try taking it in turns with the sleep and making sure that you are getting some rest. And that should hopefully help. Next tonight is what's trending. And I came across something on Instagram, which was called Mummy Milestones. And I think as parents, we always fixate on our baby's milestones when they're sitting up, when they're rolling, when they get the first tooth, when they start to walk. And it's easy to focus on the baby's progression, but you neglect your progression as a mother and as a person. And it was things like the first solo car journey you go on with your baby. I still remember mine with my first being like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm taking her out in the car on my own. And I wasn't frantic. I was just like, this is a big deal. Another one was the first time you take your baby out to a cafe. The first time you go on a pram walk. The first time you get through your baby's first illness. Because you do become a nurse as well as a mother, don't you? You have to get to the the bottom of why they're ill. You have to give them the medicine. You have to 9 times out of 10 stay up all night with them because they're so ill, and they just want to be held. And it's all these things you do as a new mum, like the first time you made lunch, with one hand. There's so many things that you can look back on now. Say you've got a baby who's 6 months, for example, and think, wow, God, I have grown as a person. And I even think that's mentally as well. I know for me, I don't worry about rubbish anymore. I used to be a bit of a worrier, but now I'm a mum. I'm like, I don't care. As long as my babies are okay, my family's okay, and we're healthy and we're good, we can get through anything. That's kind of my mindset now. And if I'm having a bad day, I just think of my girls and Jason, and I look at them and I think, do you know what? I can get through anything. I've got you guys. And I think it's how it shifts you mentally, it shifts you physically. I think we go through so many milestones that we don't talk about as mums. It links back to that whole matrescence thing. I spoke about a few months ago on the podcast, and it's almost like adolescence. We have a name for that. We know that becoming teenagers is a huge hormonal shifts, body shifts. And as a mum, again, there is huge hormonal and bodily shifts, which is now dubbed matrescence. And it's just a kind of reminder to remember how much you're growing as a person. Not only is your baby growing and going through all these amazing milestones, but so are you. So it's kind of like pat yourself on the back every now and then and think, God, yeah, I did that. I've done that all today without any help whilst having the baby. And if you'd have asked me 6 years ago to do that, I'd have been like, what? But I'm doing it with my eyes closed now. And you have to think, yeah, wow, I've really grown as a person and as a mother. And I just think it's a great way of looking at it. My self-care tip tonight. I haven't prepared a self-care tip. I'm looking at my list going, oh my goodness, I haven't prepared a self-care tip. So I'm going to think of one off the top of my head. And I'm going to tell you to get yourself a new moisturiser. I did the other day. And I just treated myself. Doesn't have to be really expensive. Just a nice new moisturiser that you can add into your nighttime routine. Because I think taking my makeup off is one of those things that I've neglected a little bit lately. I'm usually really good at it. I usually have a nighttime shower. That's me, my routine. I'll get the girls down and I'll either have a bath or a shower. And then I'm ready for the morning. I can just get dressed and crack on with the girls. So that's usually when I take my makeup off. But if I don't do that, I've got a bit sloppy with it. So I've been trying to improve my nightly skincare routine. And I got myself, it was just a new eye cream. I think it's like a L'Oreal one for under your eyes. And I do feel like they're a little bit brighter and a little bit better. So yeah, if that's something that you're not prioritising, skincare shouldn't be seen as self-care. Skincare should just be seen as like part of your day, shouldn't it? But as a mum, finding time for these things, it just ends up being cut back quite a lot, doesn't it? So yeah, get yourself a nice new moisturiser and treat yourself. Finally, to finish on a quote I wrote, I met postpartum me for coffee today. She was a couple of minutes late and explained she'd only slept for an hour last night. She put her hand on mine and asked, does it really get easier? I smiled and said, see that sleeping baby in your arms? She's 4 now and has the most wonderful laugh you've ever heard. She sleeps through the night, but sometimes gets in next to me for warmth and comfort. Watching the world through her eyes is nothing short of incredible. Her questions, the way she mispronounces words, her smile when I pick her up from nursery, and the hug she gives me as I drop her off, all dwarf the sleepless nights we had in the early days. It's tough, 3 months in, but you'll soon find your way. Soon she'll be sipping hot chocolates with you and telling you you're beautiful. You have some of the best years of your life coming up. Just keep going through those early testing days. The seasons of motherhood change, and yes, they do get easier. She smiled, thanked me, and left. I watched her walk down the road with that postpartum nervousness of being out and about. Her chin was raised a little higher than before, though, and I knew she'd be just Fine. Thank you for listening tonight, as always. If you would leave me a review or a rating wherever you listen, that would hugely help me. And if you have any dilemmas, stories, questions, please email them in thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. And I wish you all a restful, relaxing night ahead. Good night.